Ah, clock's running. We're on. We're in. I've changed the camera angle today. You can see the. In fact, I'm going to move the camera around a little bit. This is GTV. Sorry, it's the 15th of July, 2011. It's early morning, and I only have time to do this today because someone didn't turn up for a meeting. So I got a little bit of time. So. Look, this is the desk where I'm working at. This is where I'm compiling my information. This is where I keep some of my books, my files, and my folders for the work that I do. There's some more stuff over there. And through the back here, that's where the cool stuff goes on. That's where we do the education, and we try to keep people informed about what's going on in the world. And it's just you see the fan going on there in the background because it's incredibly hot here today. And there's the window out there. You can see we're up in the hills. Okay, right. So that's not really very important, but it might just keep your interest. Right. What's the point today? Well, we're supposed to look at educational topics, but we can't look at education without looking at other elements of life and society and the way to understand how everything networks together and where the important confluences occur in elements of education. So the important point today is to have a little look at this information here. The book is Propaganda by Edward Bernays. The publication date is 1928. Why is this important? Well, I speak to a lot of students who are studying business and who are studying marketing, and none of them have ever heard of Edward Bernays because none of their teachers have ever heard of Edward Bernays, which shows that their teachers know very little truly about the subject that they're talking about. Of course, they have exams and they prepare their students for exams and they study the common topics, but they never really go into depth there. I never really go into depth about any important elements or issues that truly influence, I think, society. So I have a little quote here. Let's run through the quote. A little quote, it's a long quote. I'm going to go through it as quickly as possible. This is taken from Noam Chomsky's book, What Makes Mainstream Media Mainstream? Oh, it's not a book, it's a talk, sorry, it's a talk. It was at the Z Media Institute in June 1997. The American business community was very impressed with the propaganda effort. They had a problem at that time. The country was becoming formally more democratic. A lot of people were able to vote. The country was becoming wealthier and more people could participate, and a lot of new immigrants were coming in. Interesting that he should say that democracy was at a point of history. I think he's talking about here between the First and the Second World War becoming a problem for America because more people were coming in, becoming informed, and the establishment, because there's always been an establishment, didn't really appreciate this. Continuing. So what do? It's going to be harder to run things as a private club. Therefore, obviously, you have to control what people think. You have to control what people think. There had been public relations specialists, but there was never a public relations industry. There was a guy hired to make Rockefeller's image look prettier, but this huge public relations industry, which was a US invention and a monstrous industry, he likes the word industry, came directly out of the First World War. Now notice notice that most of our developments that have occurred through the 20th century have developed from elements of war. War seems to be the simplest way, unfortunately, to drive society forward or to drive changes through society. The leading figures were people in the Creel Commission. Creel Commission, make a note, check that out. In fact, the main one, Edward Bernays, comes right out of the Creole Commission. He has a book, or he had a book that came out right afterwards called Propaganda. The term propaganda, incidentally, did not have a negative connotation in those days. Propaganda. It was during the Second World War that the term became taboo because it was connected with Germany. But in this period, the term the Germans were just copying the Americans, and after the Second World War, they said that in the Nuremberg trials. We were just copying what the Americans were doing. We don't understand. Oh, what's wrong? Where are we? The propaganda system of the First World War and this commission that he was part of showed that it was possible to regiment the public mind every bit as much as an army regiments their bodies. It was possible to regiment the public mind every bit as much as an army regiments their bodies. These new techniques of regimentation of minds, he said, had to be used by the intelligent minorities in order to make sure that the slobs, that's a Chomsky quote, slobs stay on the right course. The profane, perhaps. We can do it now because we have these new techniques. And his book Propaganda became the main manual of the public relations industry, and Bernays himself a kind of guru. He was an authentic Roosevelt-Kennedy liberal. He also engineered the public relations effort behind various US-backed foreign operations, including the overthrow of the democratic government of Guatemala. Yes, the United States was directly involved in the overthrowing of a democratic government. Why would they want to do that? Well, the question is if they really were the United States at that point in time, or if someone else had not begun to influence their foreign policy. Interestingly, I think this was maybe before the CIA was created. I don't know, we'd have to look at that. More coffee. His major coup, the one that really propelled him into fame in the late 1920s, was getting women to smoke. Women didn't smoke in those days, and he ran huge campaigns for Chesterfield's cigarette brand. You know, all the techniques, models and movie stars, things that we're used to now, started way back then. Cigarettes coming out of their mouths, and he got enormous praise for that. He became a leading figure of the industry, and his book became the real manual. So it might be interesting to see what Bernays himself says within the book itself, because I can't find my notes here. Right. So I'm just going to read you one or two lines, which come right out of the chapter 1. Chapter 1 is entitled "Organizing Chaos." Organizing chaos. If you understand the importance of that, then you understand how society develops, that the order through chaos system has been in process for centuries, as far back as we can ever remember, in fact. So I'm just going to read you the first paragraph from the book. This is probably the most amazing first paragraph of any book that I've ever read. Chapter 1, Organizing Chaos. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. There, he says it all. He says it all. It's all there in that first paragraph. And the book goes on to describe how to do it and to justify it as well. You know, the Machiavellian principles, the end justifies the means. It's better to have that than to have another that, I suppose. Uh, following on from that, we're going to skip through a lot of information. I wanted to do a bit of a biography of Bernays, but we're going to look at the meat and potatoes content here. A biography of Bernays called The Father of Spin was written by Larry Ty, and these are some, this is a review of the review, actually, of the book. And I'm going to post up a link to it so that you can check that I'm not just making this up. But it gives a nice overview of Bernays' principles. And so here we go. It's impossible to fundamentally grasp the social, political, economic and cultural developments of the past 100 years without some understanding of Bernays and his professional heirs in the public relations industry, which is what I was saying at the beginning. The sad fact is that most university lecturers never introduce their students to this topic, which shows how very little they know about their subject. It's coffee morning this morning. PR is a 20th century phenomenon, and Bernays, widely eulogized as the father of public relations at the time of his death in 1995, played a major role in defining the industry's philosophy and methods. Bernays' papers provide illuminating and sometimes disturbing background on some of the most interesting episodes of 20th century history. From the way American tobacco tycoons made it socially acceptable for women to smoke, to the way other titans of industry persuaded us to pave over our landscape and switch to beer as the beverage of moderation. Oh, how that has changed society. Have you ever thought about how you, maybe you have, how you're never more than 2 minutes away or 3 minutes away from a pub? You're never more than hop, step and jump away from some alcohol in modern society. Alcohol and a chemist, chemist shop or pharmacy. Those are usually the two things that are prominent in your local community and society. Interesting that they both, in essence, are drugging society. Not always in a bad way, but it's still interesting, I think. How are we doing for time? Oh, we've got about 30 seconds left. Okay. And I'm not going to get through the hundreds of pages I've got here of information. Hundreds of pages? Oh, that's an exaggeration. I've got about 8 pages that it would take forever. So the companies involved in these advertising techniques aren't likely to release their records of those campaigns, assuming they still exist. But Bernays saved every scrap of paper he sent out or took in, and in doing so, he let us see just how policies were made. So I'm going to give the general overview here. That's everyone needs to look at Bernays. Everyone needs to read propaganda, and it'll just open everyone's eyes to a little bit more of what's going on in their society around about them to get a clearer picture. That's it. Stop this now. Thank you very much.